A fifth-grade girl never did homework, but in art class, she kept breaking 50 pencils. She didn't draw anything. The teacher felt confused, so he went over to examine it. It turned out that the girl was writing all over the paper with messy numbers. The teacher reminded her that this was not math class, but the girl not only didn't react, but also wrote even more frantically. Helplessly, the teacher had to snatch the paper and declare the end of class. The writing was interrupted, but after the girl regained her composure, she wasn't angry at all. She just quietly walked out of the classroom. She stared at the sun and didn't even pay attention when the teacher called her. She seemed to be thinking about something until the school's anniversary. The artworks were sealed underground, like a gift for the students. 50 years later, Lucinda stood watching in the schoolyard. Her expression became increasingly serious. When the teacher turned back to look, Lucinda had disappeared. The balloon in the sky slipped out of her hand. That meant that Lucinda didn't just leave. Indeed, the girl went missing. The school organized people to search for her, but from morning to night, there was still no trace. At this time, the teacher heard a noise in the basement of the school, opened the door, and saw Lucinda sitting on the ground with her hands covered in blood. The teacher was stunned, looking at Lucinda's fingers that kept moving instinctively. Looking up at the door, he didn't expect Lucinda to be trying to finish writing the numbers that were pasted on the previous page. Her mouth kept repeating the two words, "Stop." The teacher felt a chill down his spine, but didn't pay much attention. Time flew by. 50 years later, the school followed its promise, took the time capsule up, and distributed the pictures inside as gifts to the new students. Someone received a picture of a flying saucer. Everyone was happy, but one boy was a bit disappointed because he only received a torn piece of paper filled with numbers. Just when the boy was confused, a man in black suddenly appeared from afar, staring at CP. CP looked at him in a daze. At this time, his classmates ran to find him and saw that CP only received a piece of scrap paper and immediately mocked him as unlucky. CP didn't care, but when he turned around again, the man in black disappeared without a trace. CP felt that these numbers were not simple, so he brought the torn paper home and told his father that this could be a math puzzle. John didn't pay attention at first. He even used the paper to line his cup, but when he accidentally discovered a series of numbers on the paper that were familiar to him because he was an engineer, he decided to copy it down for research. After many times of separating and combining the numbers, John found a combination that was similar to the date 9 on October 11, 1996. He looked it up online, and the result was that day was the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack that shocked the entire United States. The number of deaths also matched the number 2,996 written on the paper. He trembled and felt that something was strange. These numbers were written in 1,959. When the time capsule was dug up, he was there. Could it be that someone in the past could predict the future? To prove it? This is just a coincidence. John copied all the numbers using a pen to separate each number and entered it into the computer to look up. But without exception, every day a major disaster happened that was famous worldwide, and the number of deaths also completely matched. However, after each time and number of deaths, there were still some numbers that John still could not decipher the meaning of. However, the available evidence showed that these numbers could actually predict disasters, so early the next morning, R went to the laboratory, wanting to ask his colleague, who was also an astronomer, for help, but the other party completely did not believe what Jay said and mocked John for being a scientist but believing in mystical things, seeing that John could only present the evidence he had collected, and said that there were still 3 disasters that had not happened, the most recent of which was tomorrow, according to the records. 81 people would die. Du thought this would make his colleague take him seriously, but unexpectedly, the other party brought up John's late wife, saying that John was a single-parent family and overworked, so he was paranoid. At this point, John didn't want to explain any further and turned around to leave the office. However, he didn't give up. That night, John sat in front of the TV and kept watching the news channel. He wanted to verify whether a disaster had happened or not, but he waited until the next afternoon and still didn't see any news about the dead. Furthermore, because he stayed up all night, he forgot to pick up his son from school. He saw that it was about to rain. John hurriedly drove to school but encountered a serious traffic jam on the road. John opened the GPS to find another way but couldn't avoid the traffic jam. Helplessly, he had to call his son and tell him to wait patiently. But halfway through, John seemed to discover something. It was the coordinates displayed on the GPS map. He felt a bit familiar and quickly took out the paper. He carefully compared the numbers behind the date, and it turned out to be the coordinates. Furthermore, it was his current location. Is the traffic jam because someone died in front? John decided to get out of the car to check, as if the cause was just a traffic accident. Do ask the traffic police about the specific situation. Unexpectedly, before the police officer could say 2 words, his expression suddenly changed, turned around and ran away. He turned around to see what was going on. Seeing the plane crash in the distance, John knew that the disaster had come true. John immediately ran to the scene of the accident. Fire was burning everywhere and the scene was extremely chaotic, but there were still many surviving passengers trying their best to save people, wanting to break the prophecy. 81 people died. But then a loud explosion rang out. It was clearly an illusion. However, with the principle of saving whoever can save too, John did not stop. At this time, the rescue team arrived at the scene. He also had some time to catch his breath, but looking at the tragic scene before his eyes, a feeling of helplessness still rose in his heart. Now he could only pray that the death toll was wrong. However, when he returned home, the news on television was like a blow. Strong on Team R, exactly 81 people died after seeing the news. The colleague came to find John that night. Now he completely believes in the prophecy with numbers. But John started to doubt himself because the fact that his son received the number paper and that he passed by the scene of the accident was too coincidental. It seemed like there was some force leading him. He tried to prevent the disaster. Seeing that John was too sure, the colleague advised him that it was best to stay out of it, but John didn't think so. Because the day his wife had a fire in the past was also among them, and the last day did not record the number of deaths and the coordinates belonged to an unknown disaster. He didn't dare bet that bad luck wouldn't come down on him again. So the next day, he visited the old teacher of the person who wrote the paper to ask about Lucinda's reaction when the time capsule was sealed in the past. The teacher had a serious expression and told the story of the little girl Lucinda hiding in the gym's changing room to break the door. John wanted to know why Lucinda did that, but the teacher also did not know, only remembered that the day before the school's founding anniversary, Lucinda had been writing down numbers frantically throughout the entire class. Stopping her with words was completely useless. She was helpless and had to take the paper back and interrupt. Lucina saw that. John took the paper and gave it to the teacher, wanting to confirm whether Lucinda had written it or not. After the teacher confirmed, John said he wanted to see Lucina. But the answer he received was that Lucinda had passed away a long time ago. The clue was about to break, but John was, of course, unwilling, so he entered Lucinda's name into the website, wanting to try his luck. Unexpectedly, there was actually information about her. It turned out that Lucinda had given up and was even published in the newspaper. The article stated that she also had a daughter. Jay thought that her daughter might know something, so the next morning he went to the email address and saw the mother and daughter preparing to drive out. John also drove along. Finally, he found an opportunity at the prehistoric museum to perform a textbook-level conversation scene and saw his daughter. And she likes wolves. June also told his son to go there. Children are less wary of each other, so they quickly chatted. John also took this opportunity to chat with Callie through the topic of children. He successfully made an appointment with Callie to have afternoon tea. Then, through the chat, John learned that she was like him, a single parent in the same situation. The distance between the two was also significantly shortened. Seeing that the opportunity was ripe, John revealed his true purpose, saying that this meeting was not by chance but intentionally came to find her. Callie was a bit suspicious and didn't know where to explain, so he could only shyly ask Callie if she knew her mother had special abilities. Seeing Callie looking bewildered, John hurriedly took out his identification papers and said that he was an astronomy professor at the Institute of Technology. At the same time, he took out a piece of paper and said that his son had received a prophecy about the disaster that her mother had written at her old school to prevent the disaster from happening. He wanted to ask her for some clues, but with such absurd words, who would believe it? Callie said that he was crazy, stood up and was about to take his daughter away. Seeing that, John quickly stopped Callie and told her that the plane crash that had shocked the whole city earlier had been recorded. on the paper. Moreover, the time and place of the number of deaths were completely identical. The next prophecy was that tomorrow there would be 170 deaths in the New York City area. But even though Kali was a little surprised, she still didn't want to cooperate with John. John was helpless. John could only go home first. However, at this moment, a car suddenly drove up in front of the house. Inside, two men were sitting, their faces unclear. Caleb's attention was attracted by their mouths, but there were incomprehensible sounds coming from Caleb. He seemed to understand what the baby was running to. After a little hesitation, after speaking, a guy from the other side gave CP a black stone. At this time, Yon in the house also discovered something unusual. He was worried that it was a human trafficker, so he hurriedly ran out to see, but the car had already sped away. He asked his son who it was. CP said he didn't know. They only left a black stone. He took the stone and observed it carefully. There was nothing special. After warning his son not to talk to strangers, he told his son to go upstairs to do it. The duo exercise began to consider the prophecy of the disaster tomorrow. The accident site was a densely populated area in the city, and only 100 to 70 people died. The document ruled out the possibility of a natural disaster. Then it could only be terrorism. That night, John called the FBI and asked them to block off that street tomorrow. The police were a bit confused when they heard it. John didn't know how to explain it, so he could only emphasize it again and hung up. Early the next morning, John drove to the location according to the coordinates. The police had indeed prepared, but they didn't block off the street where the crime scene was still crowded. John angrily walked up to question the police. Unexpectedly, this police force didn't come to deal with the attack, but to arrest John, the rumor monger. Realizing the situation, John ran away. The police also chased closely, but now John didn't have time to play hide and seek. The coordinates were correct, but there was nothing unusual on the ground. So the terrorist could only be underground. But when Roe arrived at the subway station, after searching for a long time, he still couldn't find anything unusual. At this moment, he discovered a man standing in the chicken yard, hiding something in front of his chest, looking furtive. Sure enough, before he could do anything, he had already run away into the crowd. The two people chased each other, causing the surrounding passengers to be alarmed. The man, with a dizzy mind, rushed onto the subway and was quickly pushed to the end of the train, facing the police, who pointed their guns at him and threatened him. The man hurriedly raised his hands high. A pile of CDs fell out of his chest. It turned out he was just a petty thief. What a shock! At this time, the train started moving. But before it could go 10 meters, the power line on the DY line in front suddenly short-circuited, making it impossible to change lanes completely. The driver of the train opposite discovered something unusual and wanted to brake, but it was too late. Then the train was running at a speed of 200 kilometers per h. The wheels were jammed, and it rushed straight towards John's train car like a rocket. Finally, the train stopped. After crashing into the chicken yard stairs, John managed to run to the back of the train in time to escape, but the accident also made Jean understand that he was completely incapable of stopping the prophecy. He also no longer cared about the news that night because the death toll was definitely 170. However, this accident was not entirely a bad thing. When John went to his sister's house to pick up his son, he discovered that Callie and her mother had come to visit at midnight, knowing that they believed him. John hurriedly let the two children go out to play. Callie went straight to the point, saying that she was willing to help him. He went to her mother's old house to find clues, but in fact, she was also helping herself because her mother had said that Callie would die on the 19th of October of this year. According to the notes on that piece of paper, it was the last day of the prophecy. She had deliberately avoided it because she didn't want to believe what her mother said, but now that the prophecy had come true, she couldn't help but act. John expressed his sympathy. Soon they arrived at Linda's old residence. The children were sleeping, so they left them in the car. The two of them went into the house together at this moment. Holding the paper in their hands, they discovered that the last day had a problem. Behind it was not the number 33, but two letters, E. When her mother was alive, she liked to write the letter E backwards. John thought that
they found a tattered Bible. And a strange picture. It's a picture of ordinary people kneeling. A God on high. A strange lion in the middle is a sphere of metal. John is a little confused. Callie explained that her mother at birth I often stare at this picture. Every time for hours. John felt this picture was not simple. Decided to bring about a thorough study. Then they went to Lucina's bedroom. But a long search yielded nothing. John is leaving, but when R.A. came to the door, he seemed to step on something. If you shine a flashlight, R.A. is a black stone, just like the stone your son got. There are many more under the bed. John looked down. I found that the back of the bedboard was engraved. But when John curiously flipped up the inscription on it, makes you take a few steps back. It turns out that 2 is not his name. It's an acronym for N of Te Tua, the end of the world. So, the last day. There are no coordinates and the number of dead. The 2 men stood dumbfounded on the spot. At the same time, Cayes outside the car seemed to hear a noise. Look outside and see. The man in black before. Reappear around. It was clear to wake up the sleeping BBY. Now the man in black was approaching. Speaking in thick English. Tell the kids to follow him. I can't believe Abai is not afraid. I'm going to open the door for the man in black. Kalp couldn't stop it. I was in a hurry to honk the car horn. I heard a noise, and they both rushed out. But when we get to the car, the man in black disappeared. John asked his son what had happened. The calf said. The man in black gave him the stone. Tell him and apply, follow him. John was a little stunned. It's not time for you to recover. Suddenly there was a noise in the back. It's the man in black. That your son just mentioned. To subtract the after effects later, John managed to get a handgun in the car. Follow the direction the enemy leaves. You finally caught the enemy in an open field. It's more like catching it. The man in black was waiting. He asked at gunpoint what his purpose was. But they don't care about John at all. Just slowly turn around and open your mouth. Shoot out the bright light. For a moment the whole sky was illuminated. It happened so suddenly. He couldn't escape, so his eyes were temporarily blind. When the soul returns, the man in black ran away. But the surprise is, Callie's daughter, it was also the man in black. Give the stone. And from then on, she always feels like someone is watching her. It's getting more and more strange, like the end of the world is coming and they have no clue how to stop it. 2 people. I'm not in the mood to study this anymore. I just want to spend more time with my daughter. June also broke the rules of sleeping with his son. Death is not scary, the scary thing is waiting to die. John thought the end was fixed. But early the next morning, things took a turn. When John called Abby up for breakfast, I noticed she was drawing something. After asking Han, Abby holds up the picture of Jesus that John brought back. Say a son sentence. John was a little confused at first. But look closely at the throne of God. The color of your face suddenly changed. I hurried to call her mother. Come with me to the observatory. After arranging for 3 of them, John rushed to the office. The first time I saw you so nervous. Hurry, Theo, ask what happened. John said that. You've observed before. I see signs of the sun emitting a firestorm. And the intensity far exceeds the previous recorded range. Once it's fully flared, the Earth's sun will be destroyed immediately. Kill every creature on the surface. Technology. It is currently completely impossible to stop. According to a prophecy from 55, the end of the world will come tomorrow. The colleague felt a chill in his back. But there's still a ray of hope. Want to inform Chonaka. June said it was unnecessary. Surely they already know. I just can't get the news out yet. The plane crash, and the previous subway train crash. It's all due to a small amount of solar flares, disturbing the Earth's magnetic field. Causing a colleague to collapse and trembling is the opposite. I don't understand. If I'm not able to prevent the end of the world, why did you receive the prophecy? At this moment there was a cry behind John. Looking back, R.A. was Callie just passing by. Can't accept the truth. She ran out of the observation facility sobbing. John chasing. Comfort. Callie asked if hiding underground could survive. You know there's a secret cave on the outskirts. John hesitated for a moment, still unable to extinguish the ray of hope.
No, she knows there is a secret cave in the suburbs. R hesitated for a moment, still not willing to extinguish. Callie's last hope said that there was a possibility that the 4 of them would return home later, packing up their belongings. But at this moment, CB's hearing aid suddenly made a stable sound. It seemed like someone was transmitting a message to him from afar when John informed his parents to come and call CP to run away. CP did not react as if he did not hear. John curiously walked over to see and saw his son frantically writing numbers, snatched the reminder paper. It was time to go unexpectedly. CP directly carved words on the table, helpless. John had to grab the pen, but it was still useless. CP even started using his hand to carve words. John was scared, hurriedly pushed his son away. At this moment, CP just came back to his senses. But when John asked the reason, CP had absolutely no idea what he had done, looking at the unfinished numbers on the table. John seemed to think of something. He decided not to hide underground anymore, but drove to his son's school, telling the three of them to wait for him there. I took the tools and left. He went straight to the school's basement, opened a door, confirmed that there were some small force marks on it, then removed the door. Then he immediately drove home and carried the door into the warehouse. Callie didn't understand why John did that and hurriedly urged him to go to the action. But the answer she received was no. Callie thought she had misheard. John explained that her mother in the past could have written down the coordinates of the final disaster prophecy, but unfortunately she was interrupted by the teacher. So she used her hand to carve on this door, but if the whole world was in trouble, writing down the coordinates would be meaningless. The only possibility was that this place could help us survive. However, Callie couldn't understand. Seeing John like he was crazy, she refused to go. Callie decided to leave John alone, taking the two children and running away alone. CP wanted to wait for his father, but Callie clearly coaxed him that John would chase after him. At this time, John's work was almost finished, and seeing that there were indeed numbers on it, he hurriedly took out the GPS device and entered the coordinates. Unexpectedly, it was the house. Callie's mother's old man John ran out of the warehouse, intending to tell Callie, but unexpectedly she had already run away. When he regained his senses, John hurriedly drove after her. But he didn't know the exact location of the cave. He could only drive to the suburbs somewhere else. Callie drove to the gas station in the evening to fill up with gas, but when he paid, the television suddenly broadcast a disaster warning from the U.S. government. It was exactly like what John had said. The government also knew that it was impossible to turn the situation around. They could only avoid the problem. They encouraged people to hide in the basement, to stock up on necessities and quietly wait for the solar flare to end. The people began to riot. At this time, CP in the car saw that his father had not arrived yet, so he secretly got out of the car and called his father. When asked where his son was, but CP didn't know where the gas station was. Luckily, Callie appeared in time to replace CP and tell John the exact location. Callie apologized to John, but John didn't have time to investigate this matter right now. He hurriedly told Callie to take the children to their grandmother's house. Callie thought John was crazy and insisted on taking the children to the cave. Jay was also completely helpless with her. This was our only chance. If not, we will all die in Yen there. I will come right away. No, if we reach the cave, we still have a chance to survive. I told you the sun shines there. The cave cannot save us. The radiation will penetrate the Earth's crust to a depth of 1 mile. Understand the only chance is to go to the place where the numbers indicate even so. Callie did not dare to bet her child's life, still chose to do as she pleased. Unexpectedly at this moment, she suddenly discovered a black stone in front of her, felt a bit familiar. She instinctively looked back and saw that the car had been stolen. Moreover, the two children were still in the car. Seeing that she could not catch up, Callie hurriedly asked the people around for help, but everyone was busy fighting to buy necessities completely. Not in the mind to help helpless, Callie had to steal the car of a passerby. When the car owner finished paying and turned back, Callie had stepped on the gas and rushed out onto the highway, madly chasing in the direction of the children. Initially, she still could see the taillights of the other car, but when it was Callie's turn to go through the traffic light, the light turned red. Seeing the distance between them getting farther and farther, Callie didn't care much anymore and went straight through the line of cars, trying to run the light.
And her child. At the same time, tell John to follow Callie. Not enough time to think. John hurried to chase. But when we're halfway there, I found the police had blocked the road. John thought Callie had called the police. I got out of the car to ask for the news. I can't believe it was a traffic accident. John immediately lost his way. Can only worry about walking around the scene. Right now, John found it in the ambulance next door. Someone was injured. Come closer and look. So that's Callie looking for the kids. But your wounds are too heavy. Although the doctor did his best to save, they can't turn the situation around. Time of death number 19/10. Callie's mother's prophecy has been fulfilled. Rescuers leave. John got into the car in a bad mood. Hold tight to Callie's right hand. But right now, John suddenly discovered something in his hand. It's a black stone. John immediately understood everything. The children were taken away by the mysterious Kia. That last time, the enemy showed up at Callie's grandmother's house. John was just passing by. I won't give in this time. They must make the enemy pay. With life. A few minutes later John arrived. But I can't see Callie's car. But fortunately, on the ground there are obvious wheel tracks. John tracks cross-country driving. I finally found my car on an empty lot. There were no children in the car. John tried to call CAF, but he accidentally discovered the shadow of the mysterious man. John points a gun at his son's whereabouts. But the enemy didn't react at all. John got angry and tried to shoot. I can't believe that at this moment, the police suddenly stopped me. I see my son safe. John finally breathed a sigh of relief. But not yet excited. I found out again, more and more mysterious people gathered around. John saw that the situation was not right and wanted to take his son away. I can't believe they said we need to follow them. John is a little confused right now. Abby also appeared nearby. That the mystery man won't hurt us. John wanted to tell Abby that her mother had died. But I don't know how to start. Fortunately, the mysterious man tricked Abby first. Tell her that her mother is safe. Caleb also said that. Mysterious people actually protect us all the time. The prophecy is also from them. It's for us to prepare in advance. John was completely stunned. But beyond the amazement, he began to doubt the identity of the mysterious man. The enemy did not respond. But suddenly there are strong winds around. 3 people raised their heads to look. Only seen in the sky, there's a giant spaceship. Of the aliens. This strong pressure from the high civilization made John a leading astronomer of mankind. I can't help but kneel on the ground. Next, the ship launched a ball of light from the inside. The man in black signaled it was time to leave. But John is still alive. Until it's clear. You are reluctant to stand up. Go forward. Not expected. He was stopped in the middle of the road by a white-haired man. John is a little confused. The silver-haired man spoke with clear. By whispering. Even though I don't understand what they're saying. But look at the son's astonished face. John knows for sure that nothing good happens. After Cayes translated. You said that aliens say. Only the chosen ones can go. John started to panic. Ask the aliens to take you with them. The look on the opponent's face was obvious. Not after giving an ultimatum to Cayes. The aliens are slowly spinning. Go to the ball of light. Both June and Cayes are struggling. Abby doesn't seem to be under pressure. Caleb's waiting for me to make a decision. After thinking carefully, June decided to let his son go alone. Even though you don't trust aliens. But even SAO is better than staying on Earth waiting to die. Caleb doesn't want to be away from me. John only cheated on his son. I will go to heaven to find my mother. Take off your engagement ring and your wife. Give it to your son. Said that we would meet again. The young boy is now. They agreed to go to the ball of light. See, the aliens took off their camouflage. Revealing his true form invites 2 children to board the car. Lep and Dad say goodbye, with the special gestures of 2 people. The giant ball of light starts to launch. Under John's watchful eye. Slowly the sphere went inside the ship. Fly straight into space. When the ship completely disappears from view. John finally couldn't help himself.
Painful until he passed out when he woke up. It was already morning. The sky was no longer the usual blue, but a strange red color row drove home with a numb face. Even though he saw the ozone layer being destroyed, but his heart was still not rippled. At this time, the city was engulfed in smoke. The streets were full of people running around, and the army was trying to maintain order. RN disappointedly returning to his parents' house, but before he could raise his hand to knock on the door, he heard footsteps. His sister opened the door and hugged him deeply. She led John in front of his parents. John was a bit embarrassed because his father was a pastor and he was an astronomer. The difference in ideology between Science and theology made their relationship very tense, but now the world was about to be destroyed. The father and son finally put aside their previous grudges. The whole family of 4 hugged each other tightly, enjoying the last warmth of life. In another place, CLP and Abby put the alien gift down the plane, also completed their mission. Leaving the 2 children looked at the beautiful planet, beautiful with full of dogtail grass in front of them, running together towards
Run towards the tree together. Life symbolizes the new world. The value of a film lies in its reputation. The value of a movie review lies in the feeling. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the movie. How do you see this movie? Please comment below.